Hi everyone, and welcome to our video on poetry characteristics. Make sure you have your notebook set up correctly and that you have your video visa on the left side and that you have your note taker on the right. Make sure you're following along and using the video to accurately complete your notes. Pause the video to give you time to write, and remember to use neat handwriting because if you can't read it, then it's not going to be any help to you. And I do recommend you rewatch the video at least once just to make sure that you didn't miss anything while you were pausing to write. So with that being said, your note taker should look like this. We're going to go over what is poetry first, and then I'm going to show you what different characteristics that poetry has, along with some examples for each of them. So let's start by defining poetry. This is a text written in a visually distinctive style. It's usually written to express strong feelings and emotions. Being visually distinctive means that you can usually tell just by looking at it that it's a poem. And we're going to talk about what that characteristic is and what it means. And like it says here, most poetry expresses some sort of feelings, some sort of emotion. So it's good to look out for that when you're reading a poem. So here we have a poem. I'm going to use this one as an example for all of the characteristics. So let me read it to you. I really like this one. And of course, it has to do with being a teacher. It's titled Saw My Teacher on a Saturday, and it's written by Dave Crawley. Saw my teacher on a Saturday. I can't believe it's true. I saw her buying groceries like normal people do. She reached for bread and turned around, and then she caught my eye. She gave a smile and said, "Hello, I thought that I would die." "Oh, hi. Hello, Miss Appleton," I mumbled like a fool. I guess I thought that teacher types spend all their time at school. To make the situation worse, my mom was at my side. So many rows of jars and cans, so little room to hide. "Oh, please," I thought, "don't tell my mom what I did yesterday." I closed my eyes and held my breath and hoped she'd go away. Some people think it's fine to let our teachers walk about, but when it comes to Saturdays, they shouldn't let them out. So I really like this poem. I think it's kind of a silly, funny poem. Maybe you guys have experienced something similar when you've run into your teacher somewhere outside of school, and it's kind of weird, right? Don't worry, because for us teachers, it's kind of weird too. So let's talk about the characteristics of a poem. The first one I want to talk about is the lines of a poem. These are the parts that the poem is broken into, and they're similar to sentences in regular text. For example, right here in this first part, each of those is a line. And I think this one's pretty self-descriptive because you can see they're all on the same line of the poem. The next feature to talk about is stanzas. These are the groups of lines in a poem, and they're usually separated by a line break or an indentation, and they're similar to paragraphs in a regular text. In this poem, we have 6 stanzas, and you can see that between each stanza, we have that line break, that extra space that shows the separation between each of them. The next feature is a rhyme. This is when 2 or more lines of a poem end with the same sound. Now make sure that you know that this is talking about the sound, not the spelling. We know that in English there's certain combinations of letters that even though they're different letters, they make the same sound. So really pay attention to how the poem sounds to you, not the way it's spelled, not the way it looks. Not all poems have rhyme. Okay, the type of poem that doesn't have rhyme is called a free verse poem, but a lot of them do. And in this case, we have every other line rhymes. We have true do, I die, fool school, side hide, yesterday away, about out. And you'll notice like for true do, it's not the same spelling. For I die, it's not the same spelling. But then you have some that are like fool and school both end with O-O-L. So you just have to make sure that for rhyme, you're looking for the way they sound. The next characteristic we're going to talk about is rhythm. This is the pattern of the sounds and syllables used in the poem to create a cadence. A cadence means how your voice rises and falls in the voice of the reader as the poem is read. Hopefully when I was reading it, you guys were able to see the rhythm. This is kind of the beat of the poem. So for this one, the syllables are the ones that kind of match. You can see how all of the stanzas, except for the very first line, have the pattern of 8 syllables, 6 syllables, 8 syllables, 6 syllables. And you can hear the rhythm. Saw my teacher on a Saturday. I can't believe it's true. I saw her buying groceries like normal people do. You'll notice that just the structure of the poem tells my voice how to sound, right? It gives a pattern, that cadence, that rise and fall, the pauses and the starts are set up by the way that the poem is written. And this one does have a regular rhythm. It keeps the same rhythm throughout the whole poem. Now let's talk about figurative language. In case you haven't watched my video on figurative language, that might be a good place to go after this if you're not really familiar with what figurative language is. But these are the words and phrases that do not mean what they literally say. Poets use this to make a point and create an image in the reader's head. Some example are similes, metaphors, personification, and hyperbole. And again, if you want to see more specifics about what each of those types are, you can watch my figurative language video. But let me give you a couple of examples. For example, we have here, and then she caught my eye. This doesn't literally mean like his eye was flying around in the sky and she put her hands up and caught it, right? This means that they turned and made eye contact. And then it says, I thought that I would die. The author, again, is not literally saying he's going to drop dead here in the middle of a grocery store, but he's expressing with hyperbole, a gross exaggeration, that he was very embarrassed by seeing the teacher out on a Saturday. Then we have form. This is what I was talking at the beginning about the visually distinctive. This is the shape and the structure of the poem. This is how it looks on the page. Most of the time with poetry, just by looking at it, you can tell that it's a poem. On this one, for example, you have all of the lines lined up on the right. They extend towards the left, but they don't all match the same size. And then you have those line breaks in between the stanzas, and you can tell that it's a poem because each line is a certain length, right? It's not the same length as a sentence would be written on a page. So just the way that it looks on the page is the form. Then we have mood. This is the feeling created by the poet for the reader. It's how the poem makes you feel. When you're reading this, you might feel a sense of like embarrassment for the kid, or me as being a teacher, I got a sense of just the humor of seeing. I can imagine what the kid must have looked like and felt like being there in the store. So this is how the poem makes you feel. It can be pessimistic, excited, cheerful, calm, angry, fearful, all of those. So now you should have your note taker complete with the different characteristics of a poem. Make sure that they are accurately completed. Make sure that you wrote all the things down correctly and that you used neat handwriting so that you can actually read it and refer to it later. Make sure you complete your visa to reflect on your learning. Make sure you post your part A, which is the ask a question of your visa, in Google Classroom or anywhere else that your teacher has asked you to do. And be ready to discuss the video and apply the skill. Make sure that you know how to identify each of these characteristics in a poem, and also be ready to talk about how they help you determine the meaning of a poem and the significance of each of those characteristics in a particular poem. Once you have all of that done, then you'll be ready to go.